Syndergaard, practical joke, they're bobbing heads down to the wire.
But Classic Empire wins it.
And Gormley wins the San Anita Derby.
IRA 31-1. 2017 Florida Derby to Todd Pletcher, and always dreaming. They won it by 4 in the end.
McCracken remains unblemished.
But it will be Yonaveron, Javier Castellano moving clear.
Welcome to the annual Kentucky Derby Seminar, the capital OTB annual Kentucky Derby Seminar. Looking forward to going through the field and giving some ideas on the Oaks and maybe some other stakes races as well, because it is shaping up to be a blockbuster weekend. Let me just hit you with the wagering menu or some of the wagering notes. Daily double super high five wagers are $1 minimums on Oaks Day and Derby Day. Superfecta is a $1 minimum. Trifecta, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, 50-cent minimums. Derby City 6 is a 20-cent minimum. The exacta is a $2 minimum with a straight bet, but you can do $1 exacta boxes and wheels. Special Oaks Derby Day pick 6 is a $1 minimum. And there is also an Oaks Derby double. There's an Oaks pick 3 into the Turf Classic and the Derby. So fun day, a lot of wagering opportunities, a lot of chances to make some money, and hopefully we'll give you some good ideas. And when I say we, I am joined by the panel here. Right to my right is Kevin Cox, the Brooklyn Cowboy.
Good to see you, sir.
And my man Anthony Mormino on the end. And I will get first your thoughts, just some general thoughts before we go to specifics. Anthony, the weekend to you.
If the weather cooperates, I mean, it's truly America's weekend at the races. The best 3-year-old fillies will run on Friday. And then not only the Derby, for anybody who's watching Capital Off-Track Betting, the card at Churchill Downs is just incredible. And, you know, for the weekend warriors, for the everyday players, this is about as good as it gets if you get a clear, fast racetrack.
You know, usually when I'm handicapping, I'm looking for a good race to bet. I like to eliminate horses. That's how I whittle everything down. Hope to get to 3 or 4 horses in this race or that race, maybe twice a day. I handicap basically the entire card, and I think you can count on maybe 2 hands the entire card of horses that you could eliminate on your first draft, because there were so many coming off layoffs, so many different angles, and it's not easy.
Yeah, but that means there's going to be some nice value, some real opportunities to make some magic happen. And we're hoping for you to make some magic happen for the bankroll team, because you have a nice bankroll to play on behalf of 50 patrons who are selected in various ways. And we are rooting for you and the bankroll team on the day as well.
Well, the powers that be eliminating any chance of me making a $2,500 show bet. So I'll be, for the bankroll team, I'll be putting out bets of basically the same amount in every race from the 5th to the 12th, give or take.
Excellent. So as they say, we're rooting for you there. We'll start things out and take a little look at the Oaks, then we'll take a break, and then we'll get into the Derby. But we'll give some ideas. Friday's feature is the Kentucky Oaks, $1.25 million, 3-year-old fillies going 9 furlongs. And again, it's part of the big weekend. It's a fun event, and we'll get some thoughts. Anthony, your Kentucky Oaks picks.
One quick thing is, like, I'm so old, I remember when it wasn't a grade 1. I'm so old, I remember when it was probably the 7th or 8th biggest 3-year-old filly race in the country.
Now it's the Queen Maker.
They have done, and they being the Churchill Downs people, have done a magnificent job. And I think the sea change was 1986 when Tiffany last won it, didn't run again and won the championship, and then the Naira races. And I looked at this race and I said to myself, I don't know that with and I'm only talking about the 14 main body. The fact that Hoosier Philly is 17 is a story unto itself. My go through the first time, I eliminated 1 horse when I went through it the first time. So you can bet that Darth Vader is going to be down the road at about the same price she was in the Devona Dale.
Well, if the race was on May the 4th, then you could say.
Oh, yes. Very good. So maybe I'm there.
I'll be here all week.
But very good. Very good. Tip your waiters and waitresses. And then when I went through the second time, I really only got rid of about 5 horses. Now, here's my problem with this race. I suspect at least 5 horses are going to be up front early. I have no confidence in 10 of these horses in the main body getting the 9 furlongs in top flight competition with multiple pace setters in here. So what I basically thought was, I think about an 85 is going to win this. I truly believe this. I had said for years on the Handicappers Report that it is, in my opinion, that were Kentucky Derby winners that ran 91s and 93s. Forget what was published because they never ran back to those numbers. I think this is a very mediocre group of 3-year-old fillies. I mean, that's possibly able to run an 83 or something. Has any Botanical, who's never run on the dirt, has run 90. I mean, this is, who can't win this race? Who can't run an 86 here and win? That was my first question. I have almost everybody left. I wanted a horse that I thought maybe would be one of the few horses running forwardly, particularly the last eighth of a mile. And I have Todd Pletcher at 15-1, Gambling Girl. Now, when I went through this the first time to make picks, I want you to know I was Wonder Wheel and Pretty Mischievous, the Into Mischief Exacta, because I think Wonder Wheel is going to run her best race of the year. And I think Pretty Mischievous, I don't know why they're adding blinkers. I thought she's run well. But to me, I'd be interested to hear how, you think it's going to be run. I mean, I don't think any of the pace setters are good enough, and there's about 5 of them. I think the rail horse, who you're going to, I presume, will wear the same equipment she wore in the Middle East, so she'll be able to easy pick out. Was that Mimi Kikuchi? The Alice looks. Love the race in the Silver Bullet Day. Too many horses like that. South Lawn exploded in the Fairground Oaks. I mean, who do you like? And if that case, I'm not taking Botanical or Wet Paint.
You know, you mentioned the blinker edition. I'm pretty mischievous.
I like her races.
I'm wondering, when was that decided? Because maybe they're thinking maybe she's a little high strung and they're trying to keep her vision away from the large crowd there that day a little bit.
Okay.
You know, especially now that she's drawing the outside.
Right.
I don't know how she is in the morning. So maybe there's a little more to that. I always like when a trainer shows confidence in making an equipment or medication change off of a solid effort, rather than a bad effort when they're rolling the dice. So, you know, I have no problems with that horse there, like you said.
Now, here's the problem I have with her, and I should say, through first go, I liked her. So they add blinkers, and you're in the 14 post. You must be going, right?
You hope so.
I mean, isn't that the usual old rule of thumb? You add blinkers, you sharpen their speed. She's always had good positioning speed. I mean, for Tyler Gaffione, I've often said this about jockeys. He's lucky to be outside. You want to know why? There's no decision for him to make. You have to go. You can't drop her in. You might never get out. I'm going.
That's one thing I always tell people is the outside post. There's only one constant in the game, is that you can never get squeezed at the start.
Yes.
In the outside slot.
You might veer to the right and, cause your own problems, but what your thoughts?
Well, I tell you, it took you about 30 seconds to throw me off my game, because at the top of my page here, I write, not much speed signed on. And there you go saying, if I got 5 horses going.
Listen, I don't think that you're wrong. I don't think, what I'm saying is, for our older viewers out there, there's no Cooper Coy's Joy. There's no real, speed. I didn't say there wasn't any. I don't think there is any speed like 22:45s for this. I'm just saying
for the lead, but they might not be speed.
Right. There's 5 of them that wanted. That was good though. 5 of them that want to be forwardly placed, but they're not brilliant. It could be 48 and 4 to the half, but there's going to be 5 of them. Was my thought.
I'm not going to get all sanguine here, but one thing that
by the way, was a good filly in California.
I was going to say sanguine was a good word.
It's a great word.
So thank you. I've been holding that for a couple of years.
I think Charlie Whittingham had her.
The one thing about the sport is it's become more of a rating sport than ascending sport.
No kidding.
I guess last 10, 12 years, give or take, it's just been rate. And so I looked at the race and I said, well, it's not much, like you said, proven speed signed on.
Yeah, no.
And of course, everyone's going to be leaning on Wet Paint because of all those wins and the increasing buyers and 4 for 4 on our main track. But look at the running style. Horse has to come from out of Siberia. So maybe something stupid's going to happen. Maybe somebody can shake free early. And I landed on number 8, Promise Her America, for a plethora, a tough word to say on TV, of reasons, okay? You have a January foal here. put an upwards arrow alongside the buyers. She's improved with each and every start. Okay. All 4 starts have been at increasing distances. So I like to see that. Jockey trainer combo, 25% together, which is much better than their rates apart. Now, without much speed signed on, I looked at her running style. Out of her last 12 calls, she's been within a length and a half of the leader at 10 of them.
Yes.
And 2 of them have been sprints. And even though one was a mile, I count that as a sprint.
The one turn attack.
I count the one turn as an elongated sprint. That being said, she has sprinter speed, which can carry you a long way in a paceless route, because you can get brave on the end, on the front end. So I see that. All right. The increasing bias, 25, 67, 73, 82. You have an AP over an unbridled song. So the mile and an eighth should not be an issue for the second time. Obviously, won already at a mile and an eighth. Should dig, this distance. And according to DRF formulator, Handel, who's very sharp in New York, he's 3 for 4 with fillies going long on the sand, off breaks of 50 days or less, and the prices are 55, 14, and 10. So I think she's going to be sitting a nice trip, whether she rates just off the lead, or maybe Vargas gets a little gutsy and sends on the front end.
I love Ray. He's never been in these waters. I mean, this is fun. I will say this. If I had to bet, though, I do think Flying Connection has the best speed. My problem is she got the wrong jock, who I love, but it's not a good fit. To me, she's the go. She's the one that has the legitimate front end speed, but she has a jock that might be predisposed to a different style. But she's the fastest, in my opinion. I didn't look at Formulator or Time Form's pace ones, but to me, she's the go filly from the 10, setting the pace with 4 or 5 of them right behind her.
I didn't have her in my mix, but I will mention
Which one?
Flying Connection. But I will mention Todd Fincher. If people aren't familiar, if they're looking down and seeing Sunderland and Zia, Todd Fincher is a guy who kind of dominates out there in the Southwest, but he's starting to branch out. This may be one of those horses that maybe you jump on the bandwagon before he becomes a known commodity and get a little bit of a price there. So Flying Connection is a little bit intriguing just on that aspect as well. I went 4, 6, 7, and 14. I put South Lawn on top. Norm Cassie trainee, owned by Bat Masterson. Norm's father, of course, had Tepin for this owner, and when Norm went out on his own, picked up some of the Masterson horses. And I just think given what we've seen so far this year, I think she's an improved 3-year-old, and improved and perhaps improving. We also get Raylu Gutierrez, upstate New York guy, from the Rochester area. He started his career out at the Finger Lakes and leading rider at Fairgrounds this winter. And so he becomes kind of a fun story on the weekend as well. Botanical coming out of that Turfway race to me is interesting. The last couple Turfway races, really, with the 2 numbers. The Turfway horses did very good over at Keeneland. And I think this was a salty Turfway meet this year with some inflated purses as compared to previous years. So Botanical coming in from Turfway maybe gets a little bit overlooked, but be okay. Wet Paint, I agree. I think there'll be a lot of action for this one, what we've seen so far down at Oaklawn, and it's Brad Cox. So I have no argument. Pretty mischievous on the outside. Had she been in a little further, I might have been more enamored. Now,
do you have Botanical is the second choice on the morning line? Now, I think for most people, first time dirt in the Kentucky Oaks, but you look at her pedigree, Medallion d'Or on Blame, I think there'd be fewer questions, and obviously Brad Cox.
I'll be interested, though. That 4-1. I mean, you alluded to it, coming in from Turfway and the synthetic. I have a feeling maybe we'll get more value, but I'm not sure.
The one good thing, though, that the racing form has added in the last year is they've added Tomlinsons for the synthetic. So you could basically see if they were well bred for the synthetic, and then see how they would transfer over. And this one is bred just about equally, maybe a touch better bred for the synthetic with the 361 number. It doesn't go by straight numbers because turfs are always different than dirts, and et cetera. But taking a horse doing something for the first time at short odds is a little tough.
That's the old Harvey.
I think where the chance for the flip flop is, I think South Lawn is the most apt, in my opinion, to flip flop Botanical, to be, in other words, to be the second choice. I think South Lawn's price is too high. I think that is
I said
serious
often
horse.
bettors go for the buyers.
Yes.
And Botanical has the better buyers, but I think bettors are also savvy enough to see those buyers on the synthetic. I agree with you. I think the 8-1 on South Lawn may be a little generous.
And for me, it's Gambling Girl, Affirmative Lady for Graham Motion, and South Lawn. Two things. The reason I prefer Gambling Girl, I mean, think about this in this day. Your horse won the race, and she's 30-1. My horse was the runner-up, and is 15-1. Now, that's not all Todd Pletcher. I think there's more than 2 people in America that are pace people. I'm one of them, and I thought Gambling Girl was all up against it. The one thing I love about South Lawn for Norm, she ran back-to-back big figures, but look at her 3 workouts. She is still mowing them down, so I don't think she's going to regress. I think she's a major player in this race, but I think she'll be short. I think she'll be the second choice.
Very good.
Which is a big
Any
move.
last thoughts? Are we good there? All right.
Well, who's your Philly?
Never ask him if there's any last thoughts.
We'll get
But I will
there.
say, my secondary selections were all obviously wet paint. And
Yes.
I have an also eligible, the 16, Julia Shining is the third choice. If she doesn't draw in, then I landed on the 9 and Tell Me No Lies.
Very
Because
good.
I was interested in Tax, because she's the one most apt to get in. She's next in. Tax, I thought was interesting.
Yeah, at this point,
I don't think they're
probably
getting.
no,
Yeah, you and all the rich strike people. Yeah, we know you. we know your kind.
well, we will make sure that when we talk to Derby, we'll hit on
We'll
the
get
8.
all of them.
We'll hit on the 8. All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we will shift our attention to Derby. Stay tuned.
When do you
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
The annual Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar. Seth Merrow, Kevin Cox, Anthony Mormino, and we will now take a look horse by horse at the Derby field and just give some ideas before a little bit later on we actually focus in on some selections and whatnot. But we'll do it in groups of 3, and we'll each give our opinions on each of these horses. But Anthony, we'll start with you. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Hit Show verifying 2 fills. Your thoughts?
In a race that I like, the Kentucky Oaks, I think not everyone. I think that there's about 14 horses out of the 20 that are live. So just going right down, the thing we talk about horses here, but on the human side, I mean, obviously guys like Brad Cox are just flotillas on days like today, dirt and everything. And he has Hit Show. How do you throw him out after the Wood Memorial? Well, here's my thing. One of the things I do in the Derby, unlike most races, is I'm anti-Wood Memorial. I mean, that's just it. Those horses for me are a no-go. I don't care about the Buyer speed figures. I don't care about running style. We're down inside. It's better nowadays with the 1 gate, but it's not good enough for me. It's a lot to ask, for this runner. But it's just not really my cup of tea. You have verifying, intriguing horse. I'm a part-wheel trifecta and superfecta guy. To me, he's coming into the race the right way. This would be the Brad Cox horse I would want at 15-1. And now 2 fills, obviously, with last year's winner, the Jeff Ruby Stakes, but I think he's a player in here, but he's a third and fourth place player for me because, as I said, you can't like them all. And Two Phils is like in the group for me that will be in the trifecta, superfecta hole. The 2 and the 3 won't be in my exacta range. There are players in this race because, once again, taking and Seth had alluded to this when we did the handicappers report. Let me find him here. Practical Move has the 2 100s, and there's great doubts that he can get a triple figure going 10 furlongs. No matter what they say after the fact, this could be a 96 wins the Kentucky Derby.
Although it will show up as a triple digit.
I said that long before the fact, and I said to people, and they said, well, you think you know more than him? I said, I don't. I said, but just riddle me this. How come they're not able to reproduce that figure? I mean, I've followed athletics my whole life. Eventually, you will replicate that figure. I'm not saying the next race. I'm not even saying until late in your 3-year-old season or your 4-year-old season, but you never come back to it. And I've had this list. I've talked about it on the show. The Always Dreaming, the Orbs, the Gopher Gins. There's at least 3 more. Never won again. Right. You know, so that they could never run the 106 again, which would win a lot of races. So I just think if you look at it from that way, which I do, because Seth taught me, he was correct about this, the focus on the Beyer speed. What Beyer speed figure do you think wins this race? 96. And I think there's about 12 that can do it. It's about trips. It's about pace. It's et cetera. There's no, in my opinion, there's no like Unbridled Song. There's no brilliance in here. No one's running a 111 on Saturday and is trending in the right direction to blow the roofs off. They're not. We know them all. I said if there was one, Fort or Forte, you know, if it's a beauty contest, he looks pretty good. But to me, 96, 98 wins this race, and I have about 12 that can do it. But Two Phils and Verifier of the first 3, I want nothing to do with the Wood Memorial horses.
Kevin, your thoughts on 1 through 3?
That's a great point you make about the buyers. That's why one thing is I never take them on prima facie. I like to readjust them my own way.
We don't have a lot of, they don't teach Latin in upstate.
You know how long I've
public
been hanging on to
schools.
that Latin term also? But, you know, at face value, you know, I like to readjust them myself based on
Good
trouble
thinking.
or being bumped or squeezed or even weight. I have a little methodology for adjusting for weight gains or post position switches.
Nice.
Now with the number 1 hit show, once again, you draw an upwards arrow alongside the speed figures.
Okay.
You know, be it the Wood Memorial or not. All right. I've always felt Franco was going to win at least one Kentucky Derby. I just feel he's the strongest rider in the game.
Did he have Irish War Cry, who I liked a couple of years ago? That was a big chance.
You're stumping me now.
No, I think he had him, and he said he felt brilliant coming out of his prep race, and he got to about the 3/8 pole, and he thought he was a winner, and then he wasn't. He had no horse or something. But I think that was a big chance for him.
I just feel you need a real strong stretch rider, and to me, he has the best left in the game. So he's going to win at some point. The one thing is, I wrote here, can he navigate a trip? I don't know if Franco can navigate a trip from the 1 hole. You think of the strengths of his game? His game is his strength. Not so much, you know, doing a Willie Shoemaker and figuring out how to sort that out. Slides in 11 slots, but that could work against the horse because of all the traffic. Once again, makes my first cut, but I'm not really sold on him.
Okay.
I call verifying one of my 3 kick myself horses, in such that lost by just a neck to Tapatrice in the Bluegrass, but you're getting 3 times the odds that you are on Tapatrice. That's one of those things, should the horse win, you say, well, I was digging Tapatrice a little bit. How did I not use this horse?
Absolutely.
It's 15-1, 3 times the odds, and that's gonna occur 3 times in this race, which we'll get to as we go along. Excuses in both 2-turn dirt attempts, you know, so he's got bumped a little bit of trouble trip, not dismissing it on face value. Two Phils, I don't think the last one was a fluke. The horse is decently bred for the synthetic. I think the horse is obviously on the upswing. All you have to do is look at the buyers. You're right, getting better and better. So I feel there are things to like with each of these, but none of them makes my top 3.
I'm right with you. I could make a case for all 3, and I could have included them with maybe a similar level of confidence to some of the ones I included, but you have to parse it out. Hit Show, I think, comes into this in very good form. Now, he did run second in the Wood, but don't forget, he won the Withers And then they skipped the Gotham because they didn't want to cut back to the mile. And so coming back from middle of February to the middle or early middle part of April, I had a little bit of a layoff, and I thought it was a nice ding-dong battle. Lord Miles, I will state later, I'm not thrilled about, but I thought it was a good race from Hit Show, lightly raced, maybe moving in the right direction. The one post position, I agree with Anthony, isn't as bad as it used to be with the two-gate system. But still, if you don't have a lot of speed, everybody's going to want to go over in front of you on the rail. But I wouldn't argue against Hit Show if somebody liked them. Verifying, boy, that was a nice race against Tapit Trice. They were both right there, bang, bang, bang in the bluegrass, and coming out of that with a solid number. I could make the case for Verifying, and two fills. Triple-digit buyer. There aren't many of them this year. Yes, it was on the synthetic, but the buzz at that on that Hawthorne workout that's on the page, that nice bullet. People who were there, people who saw it. Even I had Mike Welch on Sunday from the Racing Forum, the workout guy, and he said he saw the video and was impressed by that. So, again, I haven't used any of these three. All three of them scare me, but we'll move on.
One thing, just to touch on a point you made about the cutting back to the mile in the Gotham, that's one thing that Naira needs to change. They had to start out those three Triple Crown preps.
It's a bad sequence.
With the mile, you can't retard a horse by having them learn to go 1.1 miles and then cut them back to an elongated sprint. They have to go back to the mile.
And they wanted to stick in New York because he ran so well in the Withers, but they said, we're not going to cut back.
I agreed with
They're
it.
just in a bad situation based on the track. It's been this way forever that, just like Saratoga, you can't run a mile at 16th going 2 turns. I mean, unless they developed the shorter stretch.
A second finish line. I just don't know why they don't do that.
I was a proponent at Belmont Park that they made one at the 1 3/8 so they could run the 1 1/4 out of the chute instead of on the turn.
Right.
Jeremy Kuhn looked at me as if that was the dumbest idea in America. So there you go. And so good luck with that.
On that note, Kevin, we'll set you up for 4 through 6 confidence game, Tapit Trice, and Kings Barnes.
Well, confidence game, I wrote, does not make my first cut.
No.
I have, I think, half the field, 10 horses not making my first cut to win. That does not mean they can't come along, plot along for second, third, or fourth. If you're betting superfectors at $1 a pop, yikes. I did something.
It's our Kentucky Oaks Kentucky Derby gift.
I highlighted this one is one of 5 in the race that has gone wire to wire. I mean, every call. And that's one thing to look at as how many horses have the ability to go wire to wire. Nobody's ever done it twice. There's been a couple of horses that have maybe been second or third at that first call, but 1 of 5 horses to go wire to wire. I don't think it's enough to include on the win end at all. Tapit Trice is my third choice. Number 5. It's hard to argue with 4 in a row. The last pair coming in increasing levels and distances. I think I don't know what the odds are going to be. I just don't think 5-1 is a good number here. I would want 7 to 1 if I'm making. What the hell is looking at the odds meeting these days? 30 seconds a post, a minute a post. But you'd like to think that the odds would be kind of stationary that close.
Except for Mattress Mac, it will be hard to move the odds late in this pool. Although whomever he bets, you get killed.
Yeah.
Whomever he likes, as he announce on Twitter, you're doomed.
5-1 just doesn't agree with me, so I'm going to leave him underneath. There's no need to knock the horse. And then I'm flipping the proverbial page here. Kings Barnes does not make my first cut. Seems to be a few points light of these. Once again, one of the 5 horses in the race that's gone wire to wire. And there's an old school adage taking an undefeated horse at double-digit odds, but I'm not seeing it here.
Confidence game to me is very interesting, except the layoff from February. It's too much of an ask for me. That said, his workouts down at Churchill this past week and a half have gotten a little bit of buzz. So maybe Keith DeSormo is just being really clever. We shall see. But that layoff a little too much for me to get over. Tapit Trice, I have down towards the bottom of my mix because 4 wins and 5 starts after the Tampa Bay Derby, which was visually very nice. But the number came back a little bit light. People were shaking their head. But then he comes back in the bluegrass and gets the 99 in a ding-dong battle with Verifying. So I think Tapit Trice is usable. As I say, I have him down at the bottom of my mix. And then Kings Barnes, It's Todd Pletcher, 3 for 3, a lot of talent here. But again, it's tough to go with a horse with only 3 starts. It just seems like, I know it's a different world here in the 21st century, but I still, particularly when you have a kind of an evenly matched field and you're trying to parse things out, that seems like an easy way to maybe move a horse to the sidelines a little bit with only the 3 starts. So,
before Anthony starts, I heard you grimace when you hate excluding horses. It's hard for 3 quasi-professionals here to be aggressive in a race like this. You want to be aggressive. You don't want to be pussyfooting around going, I don't want to throw this one. And then when it comes to bet the race, by the end of the night, I was drunk, as they say in Goodfellas.
Yes, I mean, I think I was trying to do this, and yes, I do count Mandaloun in my ROI, but my ROI for the Derby is like 950. Well, because I had Country House and I had a couple other bombs. I go like 1 for 10. It's like, but you eventually, like this group here, these 3 horses right now, right? And Tapit Trice is the one that could be my Achilles heel here. You have to, for me, in my trifecta wagering, some have to, I'm not betting the all button. They have to go by the wayside. And these are 3 good horses, moderate price horses, in my opinion, that they don't make the cut for me because it can't be everybody. And I love one thing Tapit Trice has done that I love. He's won 4 consecutive races. That's good, obviously, but 4 different racetracks. That's noble. I mean, that's to be commended. And I do realize I would not be shocked to see the Fuchsia Silks from the 3/8 pole coming down and ruining my wager. But you can't like them all. Confidence Game. The thing I think Confidence Game has really going for it is I don't really root for too many human sides of this.
Do you root against human sides?
No.
Okay.
No. But Keith DeSormo, to me, seems like an excellent horseman. That's not to disparage the guys who win Eclipse Awards, but Keith DeSormo seems to get a different type of horse in his barn, and he seems to figure them out as individual. It might only be claimers, but it seems to me, I guess he'd be, because he's younger than me, an old hard boot. And I like the way he works. I like his work. And that's the thing for me most has going for Confidence Game. Tapit Trice is the best horse that I have to toss. And King's Barn, I probably wouldn't like anyways. But boy, for a horse that won the Louisiana Derby, I don't think he got too much respect. Matter of fact, I thought he got a lot of backhanded compliments from them. And I thought the biggest backhanded compliment, his jockey went elsewhere. I mean, that's, and his jockey is excellent and has choices in life. And was the Louisiana Derby a 7-figure race? I'm good. I'll take my cut there. I'll go elsewhere now. I think that's disparaging. Here's a horse who's won 3 races at 3 different tracks. But this was the lump of 3 that will have basically I'm not that stupid. I'll have Tapit Trice in my superfecta. But basically the 4, 5, and 6 is a group of 3 who on paper, the buyers say they're there. They're my group. That's a toss out, though.
Quick question before Seth goes. Obviously, social media is always talk about morning line odds at this track or that track. Do you make your own morning line in a race like this?
I have something to say about the morning line in the Kentucky Derby. I think it's the worst one set annually all the time. I think the last 2 years, and I know there's a political angle to this, but I think it isn't very good. There's some horses that should be a big price at 50 to 1. And as Brian Natto, our colleague, once said, he taught me how you do the addition, what is professionally acceptable and what is just lunacy. And we've talked about it for years, how now we have David Aragona in New York. The morning line is very important to the general public. I think it's one of the most important things. Okay. Me, I don't care. I tell our audience every once in a while, handicap the race without the morning line and trust your ideas. I think the morning line is not good in the Kentucky Derby. I think there's some horses that I think it's 4 or 5, they're supposed to be 50 to 1, and he just doesn't seem to want to pull the trigger by making them look, outside of that. But
they try not to insult the connections
yes.
by making the horse too high odds.
Well, I assume because
and I do know that that exists in jurisdictions because I know people and they, you look at some horses, they're negative zeros running in Naira. They're still being 99-1.
Yeah.
He's not going to do that.
I assume because you asked, you maybe do make your own line.
Absolutely.
But I will readily admit the Derby is such a different race with the 20 horses. I am bad at predicting, so I don't make a line for myself in the Derby. We watch during the rest of the year so many 8 or 10 or 12 horse fields, and I have a pretty good feel of where the odds are going to shake out for those.
Well, that's what I mean.
But
It's
this
a
is
feel,
so much
a feel
different.
thing, though,
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
Like Tapatrice just doesn't feel like a 5-1 shot.
No.
I mean, on
Well, like I
Derby
said-
day, I'll look up at the board and think exactly that. For some, there'll be some horses you look up and you see what they're going at, and you know that, oh, that's too light or too high.
Right.
Listen, I think the favorite might be 5-1 in this race.
I will say, Andy.
That's a bold statement.
I was on the.
What is he, 3-1?
Yeah.
There's only one horse you can bet as the chalk. I mean, nobody else foots the bill.
I was
We'll
on
get
the
to him.
Bick show this morning, and he had Andy Beyer on earlier, and he said, Bick said to me, I didn't hear Andy, but he said that Andy Beyer was predicting Forte would go off favored between 92 and 5-1. So
I did not hear that show this morning, but I'm in the same boat.
Interesting to see. All right, in the rotation here, I'll take the next three:
Yes.
Reincarnate, Mage, Skinner. I can be pretty quick on Reincarnate. One of the former Baffert horses that, because of the situation over in the Tim Yachtine barn, coming out of a couple of third place finishes, I am not enamored with Reincarnate. Mage, I like King's Barnes. Mage, when he went by Forte in the Florida Derby, I thought this one's over, and he ran well. He just couldn't hold off that late run from Forte, but so he's talented. He'll go forward the rest of the year, but with only the 3 starts, I can't pull the trigger. And Skinner, that was a really nice Santa Anita Derby. And I wish Mandarin Hero had gotten in. That would be a very interesting addition to the field, but he's sitting out on the AE list. And right there with Practical Move and Mandarin Hero was Skinner. I wouldn't argue against anybody, but again, it's just one of those that I like, but I had to pare it down. So out of these 3, the only one that really intrigues me and I'll maybe throw in at some spot in my mix is Skinner. So there are my thoughts. Anthony, your thoughts on 7, 8, and 9?
Here's one, taking the reverse angle of what I just said. If I put a thumb over Reincarnate, there's no way that horse is 50-1. I'm not so sure that's not a RSVP card. That horse not 50-1. That's not the type of horse that's 50-1 in a horse race.
But this horse is going to be less than 50-1 because
He's going to be demonstrably less than 50-1
because of Johnny V and Bob Yachtine, or Tim Baffert, whatever you want to call
the
it.
Sham 95 and 90 in the Rebel at 86. He's right there.
Right.
I mean, that's the Seth. I'm not for him, but for our audience that takes the time to watch this, I mean, he's not 50-1. Madge, I have no interest in. We'll let some of the cat out of the bag. Skinner's my second pick in the race. I love the Derby is probably the only race annually, since we've only worked at Saratoga together, because of the 20-horse field, the price, everything. I tend to like. I'm going to put one horse on top, but I'm going to play 2 horses in my trifecta and everything because the value still remains there. And Skinner is a major player for me, a major player. He's my second pick. I think he had no chance in races like the Santa Anita Derby and the San Felipe. We're going to get to the winner of those 2 races in a second. But this is coming to Churchill Downs now, not Santa Anita. This is a major operation. I don't think John Sheriffs would be here at all unless he thought he had a big-time horse. And if you don't follow Santa Anita, Juan Hernandez has had a terrific last 12 months. Seth had a gentleman on. I steal this from him. I can never confirm which one of his 2 gentlemen it was. I know it was one of 2. Talked about how the Curlin offsprings have dominated these 1 1/8 or 1 1/4 races in America for like the last 3 years. I got Curlin. I have Skinner. Major player for me. And with that being said, I'll ask you guys because I sometimes get lost in my enthusiasm.
No.
He's I thought you were answering the question I'm about to ask, but it dawned on me after a pause, it's not. So I'll have to still. Is Is he going to be 20-1?
Not after I talk about him.
I mean, there's so many fields are so balanced. I mean, there has to be a group. I think there's only going to be probably 2 single-digit runners. There's going to be nobody at 98-1. It's just so goofy now, the mutual odds. Maybe Skinner is 20-1. But I have to tell you, I've said this to Seth. I've said this before. Cashing on Country House, who was 30-1 in the morning line, he was not a 60-1 horse. He was a 30-1 shot. The bettors made him. I don't think Skinner's a 20-1 shot. Maybe because I like him, but I think he's a major player here. I think he's in the second group.
Well, I'm going to rattle down the top 2. Reincarnate, I don't feel there's any true shot, so let's just get that out of the way. Although he's one of the 5 wire-to-wire winners in the race.
Oh, the shame.
I was all over Mage in the Florida Derby. All over Mage, I'd say. I thought that Forte wasn't going to be fully cranked up.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, the curling in the back family with the horse. I didn't think the distance was going to be a problem. Made a substantial wager on the horse that day. It was screaming like a little Girl Scout mid-stretch when he had that lead. And it was mostly for naught, although I did get the exacta a little bit. Castellano was back on today by default because Saez is obviously on the other horse. I love Javi. I thought he gave the horse just an awful, awful ride in the Fountain of Youth. So that kind of dissuaded me from looking too much farther at the horse. And Skinner, I'm all in on Skinner. I'm all inner on Skinner. Lot to get to here.
Yeah, we don't mean Kenny Skinner.
Lot to get to. Just draw the upwards arrow alongside the last 4 figures over a 2-turn track, 2-turn races. 20-1 morning line. Once again, it's one of those kick myself horses because he lost a practical move by only a nose. And you are getting, what's practical move on the morning line? 10-1. You're getting double the odds on the horse than you are on practical move.
Right. And I have a curlin, and he's a practical joke. I like my chances.
Exactly. Sheriff's kept this one in aggressive training, even though he was decently on the outside looking in for this race. The horse needed a few defections just to make it in, and I believe is the last one.
He needed the death.
Was that?
The horse died.
Oh, yeah, well,
that's his getting in, right?
Was he a couple of out prior to that?
No, I think on Twitter, when the sad news came, the Skinner people came on board.
Right, but before that happened, he was like between the last prep. I think there was another defection.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
that may be,
between the last defection and
but
2.
into the week, yeah.
Right. But Sheriff's said he kept this horse in aggressive training because he really felt confident enough that he was not just going to make the race, but do well in it. According to DRF Formulator, from 11 starts, Sheriff's is 4-2-3-1 with graded dirt routers who hit the board 28 to 47 days ago. No Lasix. Big time jock change. This Victor Espinosa is a Hall of Famer. But Juan Hernandez is one of the top 3 finishers in the game. He is just doing fantastic out there. That sells it to me. That jock change sells it to me right there. And could get a good setup. And like you said, I don't know if this one's going to end up being the wise guy horse or not. Like you said, I don't think it's going to be 20-1. I think it's going to be close to maybe.
That's an interesting angle. Who do you think will be
13-1?
Guy?
The Japanese horse is going to be a bit of a wise guy horse a little bit because of the year they've had and all the other big races.
I'm thinking my other pick is too, and I'm not a wise guy. One thing I'll say about you talk about Castellano, easily one of the nicest people in the world. I think his apex was 2011. I think that's the best way I can put it.
He still has flashes of brilliance
at
times.
He has moments, but he was so good from that period. I think he won a couple of Clips Awards, but we'll see. So you're big on Skinner.
Skinner's my top choice.
Said that would you're not a big Skinner. That's fine. There's 20 horses.
No, I have nothing.
Because the 3 of us
big
agree
against
he's going to
him.
be one of the wise guy horses.
As I said, practical move. I'm using practical
Right,
move.
we're gonna get to
I'd love
him.
to get Mandarin Hero in the mix, and Skinner was right there. So I don't have anything against Skinner at all.
Okay.
He's just one of the ones that got left out. All right.
Lots get left out.
All right, let's go through one more series before we take a little break here. So let's jump in 10, 11, 12. Practical move, disarm, Jace's Road. Anthony, you're up.
Well, Seth had mentioned on last Saturday's handicap report that Practical Move was the lone dual triple buyer speed figure, and it's a nice series to win. I think we saw water seeking its own level in the Santa Anita Derby for this offspring of Practical Joke. I think 10 furlongs is not going to get it done. I think this horse will regress. He's one of my, he's surprised he's 10-1, but he's an out. On the other side of that equation at 30-1, to me, similar to Country House a couple years ago, he's my top pick. I know it's the Lexington and he didn't win, but I really think this is a horse going in the right direction. His effort in the Louisiana Derby going 1 mile 3/16 for an offspring of Gun Runner. Now I will say this because I've heard trainers for so long. Seth mentioned about. I'm intrigued why Asmussen did accept cutting back. I think he had to get in. So he had to go from 1 mile 3/16 to 1 mile 16.
Oh, that's clearly why.
So
they
he was like, he must think highly of this offspring of Gun Runner to get here. And one of the things I've said, I don't have anecdotally, but I said, we've talked about these juveniles that break their maiden and get these exceedingly high buyer speed figures. I say, I want like a 70 or 80 maiden special weight victory. I don't want a 92. I certainly don't want a 97. I don't want a 111. Doesn't seem to go up from there.
You want a horse to look like a shug runner. All those good shug runners have that same style. That gets better and better and better.
And I think I'm going to get a price because this horse hasn't won in a while. In the old days, when Alex Sheba won the Derby, he was eligible for non-winners and one other than. That was an anomaly. Now it's not that uncommon. So I think I have the now horse, who must not be because he's 30-1. But I'm completely against Practical Move. Disarm is my top pick. Brad Cox's other runner, I guess this is his third in the line, is 50-1. He won the Gun Runner, which is that late season Fairgrounds stakes race. I don't have him in my mix at all, although he comes behind Kingsbarn and Disarm. But to me, it's a toss on Practical Move, and my top pick is Disarm with Joel Rosario, who won with Ford, right?
It's just me or you?
Yeah, you're up.
I'm actually kind of shocked that you tossed Practical Move if you like Skinner.
Well, this is it. One horse was in position to win the race and did. The other horse was getting ready for a bigger engagement and would be hard-pressed to win at Santa Anita with that running style. I think one showed us its hand, and the other one is still showing us our best to be.
That's a good point. I made Practical Move my second choice.
Wow.
4 for 4, going 2 turns. So how do you knock that? 10-1 is still good if you're going to get 10-1. Vasquez has morphed into an excellent jockey.
Ramon.
And basically, I was kind of married to this horse in my top 3.
Okay.
Because I went with Skinner. And I will tell you, I love seeing those 100 even buyers because they get so overbet sometimes. It gives you a reason. I like leaning towards a 99.
So the 99 is good.
99.
For Skinner, it's going to help us, the 99.
Yes.
He didn't get that extra point.
Exactly.
I believe you. Seth told me to have the power of it, so obviously a 111 is very powerful.
The psychology of the better. People will gravitate towards it more. So Practical Move is my second choice. As for Disarm, I God bless you. I just couldn't see what you were seeing there.
Move is going to improve off this 100 going 10?
He doesn't need to improve to finish second in this race. He could run a 97, 98 and still finish second. He can have a slight. Skinner gets a post swap also.
I see him looking for a pillow at about the 8th point of that stretch at Churchill Downs.
Skinner gets like a little bit of a post swap from that horse, so that could add to a couple of points right there. I know what you're saying. Visually, being ahead by a length and only winning by a nose, instinctively, a person might think, well, how are they going to get 1.25 miles? You want a horse who's coming on with it. Well, maybe he did different things during the course of the race that sapped more energy than they will at 1.25 miles.
I think in this case, the opposite's true. I think once Practical Move got the 25-second third quarter, it was Katie bar the door, and it made Skinner's job almost impossible when at Santa Anita they loafed the third quarter.
That's a good point. That's a very good point also. Not enough for me to get there at 30
I understand. That's why.
And Jace's Road, I see nothing with the horse. Never been in a grade 1. Is one of the 2 winners to go wire to wire. I mean, you want to say, hey, I'll toss Cox in because he's a zillion to 1, and you're getting Cox at a zillion to 1. Sure.
Practical Move makes the bottom of my mix towards the bottom. One of the horses. Santa Anita Derby. It was the fastest 9 furlong prep of all the 9 furlong prep races. Got the good number. He's got the 2 triple-digit buyers. So again, and it's a Tim Yachting horse. But don't be fooled when you see that during the post parade. This is not one of those Baffert transfers. Tim Yachting's had him the whole time. So that's notable as well. So Practical Move is in my mix. I agree. Disarm is in my mix. And he went into Lexington. And I'm sure they were just, you look, third in the Lexington. Well, that's what they needed. He got, I believe, 6 points for that or 8 points, which just got him into the Derby field. So they had to go there to get the points, and they went and did just enough to get the points. Subsequently, last weekend, 2 weeks ago, last weekend, I think, down at Oaklawn, there was a Preakness Win in Your In race that was won by Asmussen and Winchell Thoroughbreds. And they asked Steve Asmussen after the race, well, you're going to go to the Preakness? And he said, we got to wait and see what our Derby horse does. So I think that shows a little bit of confidence for Disarm that he made that statement. Yeah, I'm not going to commit. I have a guaranteed spot with the Preakness with this horse that just went at Oaklawn. But let me see what Disarm can do. Plus, the workout this past weekend or just before the weekend got a lot of buzz for Disarm. Again, I had Mike Welch on Sunday. When the end of the conversation came, I said, who's getting the buzz? There's somebody out there getting the buzz, somebody under the radar maybe folks want to look at. He mentioned Disarm in that mix. So I think Disarm is very interesting. Jace's Road comes out of the third in the Louisiana Derby. I always like to root for our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds, and it's a Brad Cox trainee. I think it's a talented runner, but I won't be using Jace's Road.
One quick question. Being you brought up Winchell, and you mentioned, Asmussen went into the Lexington to get the points. Was that an owner's decision or a trainer's decision? Maybe the owner said, maybe Asmussen felt, I really don't think this is a Derby horse. And the owner said, no, we want to take a shot for the Derby.
We've talked with both of them. I mean, Ron Winchell is, dialed in, but I think he's the best kind of hands-on owner that, he's got the man who's won more races. And I think with these gun runners and such, they've been on board. Now, this will be as off the cuff as I said. For a long time at Saratoga, I talked about the scheduled 7 furlong debuts for babies, not the off the turf ones, but the scheduled ones. And this past year, Seth and I did the handicap report every single day, and it was the earliest they have ever won it. And Disarm won from the 1 hole in a field of 9, going 7/8 in a scheduled 7/8 in demonstrative fashion. Now, I haven't met a lot of people in this game, but I had the chance when he was waiting to go on Seth's show, Mr. Winchell. We talked a lot because I have a memory. We talked about some of his dad's horses. And they have long-term plans, like this type of plan. Like the moment that horse wins going 7/8 at Saratoga.
They take the calendar backwards. The Derbies are that day.
I don't think that's far-fetched. You didn't call me on my cell phone, but I don't think that's far-fetched. Because we talked, he gets a gun runner to win the Kentucky Derby. He's got a generational stallion. He might already have that generational stallion. He might have it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question, but kind of having sat with Ron Winchell and interviewed Steve Asmussen a few times, I get the feeling this was probably a mutual thing. And then, to me, that idea is validated by, again, what he said about the winning your in Preakness.
Right. That's what piqued my interest.
Let's see what this arm.
I think he's very intriguing.
All right, we'll head to a break. When we come back, we'll continue our look at the Kentucky Derby. And again, a little bit later on, we'll give maybe a couple other ideas on the undercard stakes as well. So stay tuned. The Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar continues.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, To be more successful, what if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances, and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back to the Capital OTB Kentucky Derby Seminar. Kevin Cox, the Brooklyn Cowboy, and Anthony Mormino joining me tonight. Seth Merrow in the studio as well. Hopefully you're enjoying taking some notes and getting ready for a big weekend. It's really
spitballs at the TV.
Let me ask you guys, because I didn't ask it at the top, but as we go through, I'll bring up some historical trends that I look at. To you, is this a little bit of a different animal than most races during the year, going back and looking at historical trends and putting that maybe into your handicapping, because the Derby is always the first Saturday in May and the prep schedule is always, and your horse has to be ready. So it's very similar year in and year out. Do the historical trends play an aspect into what you look at?
I think I've lost a little of my romanticism with it once I became a professional handicapper and writing my column for 9.5 years. So inherently, I end up treating it like just another race, unfortunately.
No, okay.
I'll still have a little snacks and I'll have a couple of drinks and, I'll talk about things with my friends, but I just can't watch endless replays of workouts. They all look the same to me on TV. Everybody looks good taking a bath in the mornings. They're all nice and shiny. Get those bath reports. Everybody. I unfortunately, I treat it as a midweek claimer sometimes.
That's fair. That's perfectly fair. Anthony?
I'm somewhere in between that, because I don't really have an opinion ever until they print the PPs. These people that, some people have a vested interest, but they'll say like Kentucky Derby 118 days out. I'm like, there's a lot of living between now and then, and they're going to print the PPs and I'm going to be able to bet. I've never understood that at all. For me, the only thing that I like about it is from the betting angle. For me, it is America's race, not because too many stiffs have won it, so it definitely isn't a great athletic contest. But from betting, it's the best. I remember when they had to develop or invent the saddle clause, because we had never run horses in America with 17, 18, 19, and 20. So we'd have 16 was the maximum
much
field
less
size.
21.
Yes. Thank you. Got the lilac up there, but to me, it's the best betting race because of the 20 entries. I think there are a lot of phonies. And the one angle that I like about taking shots, which has led to my ROI, is the idea of developing. By the time we get to the Breeders' Cup, my favorite 2 days of racing, we kind of know what animal we have. But 5 of these are going to run in claiming races at some point in their life, on average. So that you got that. But who's going forward? Who's going to be a better animal on Saturday than maybe we've ever seen? Now, obviously, that's where I am with Skinner and Disarm, because of 30-1 shots.
From a financial aspect, will you bet equal to or greater than the amount of money on this race to the best race at Saratoga?
No, it will never be close. There's no race close to the Derby because of the options. None. I mean, for me, we've talked about it a lot. Seth likes exactas very much. He's a little more of a horizontal player. I'm not a horizontal player, $1. I am exactas and tries. And because this day it's $1 for the supers, I got to let go of the rubber band. But this is the bet of the year. There's nothing like it. I mean, I would imagine if Forte wins and pays $8, that's going to be the worst bet. Everybody else is getting paid. The exacta people, the tri people, the superfecta. If you're a horizontal player, there's nothing like it. That's the part. Like, I would say 118 days till we get to bet the Derby. I mean, I don't, Orb can win. He's never winning again. But on this day, you're flush.
All right, Kevin, you're up next.
I am?
13, 14, 15, Sun Thunder, Angel of Empire, and Forte.
I wrote 3 words for Sun Thunder. Not seeing it. Not seeing it. Blinkers go on, but the trainer has equal stats putting blinkers on as he does through the rest of the year. So it's not something, blinkers are on. They're trying something. They're, throwing it out there. I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm just not seeing it, which, of course, he'll win by 4. 14, Angel of Empire. Toss out the turf race. This one has improved with each passing start. Something not to be taken lightly, especially with the horse that's won his last 2. I've often extolled the riding skills of Pratt. So, that's something to like. And this looks like a horse that could come along for the unders, maybe 4th or, a late closing 3rd, possibly, off the Arkansas Derby score. Forte, my beatable favorite. Whoa. All right. I'm going to turn Twitter off should he win by 2 lengths, of course, because I don't want to hear any yinging and yanging. The one thing from an adjusted, and like I said, I adjust my buyer speed figures. He's gone from a 98 to a 92 to a 91 over his last 3. Now, I adjust for maturity for different months throughout the 3-year-old year, the 2-year-old year, whatever. And when it comes to the Florida Derby, there was really one other legit runner in that race. So he beat Mage and he beat the Post, so it was visually impressive. But one thing I saw, I was right at the rail that day. The horse is washing out a little bit, and the weather did not call for horses to be washing out that day. So I don't know if it's a nervous thing or does he always wash out. I guess I would have had to have seen every other race. And Todd was, not pleased with the 11 hole that day. He's a little more pleased with the 15 today because it's a little different with the longer run into the stretch. 3-1, there's just no way. I'm not having it. I'm not having it at 3-1. Let the horse beat me.
Sun Thunder, I was in here doing the afternoon handicapping show, and Sun Thunder on New Year's Eve broke the maiden. And I said, you know what? Ken McPeak is going to have a really nice 3-year-old. And so I was kind of using him in some of those stakes races earlier this season. He's disappointed me after what I saw with that maiden breaker. So Sun Thunder not on my play. Angel of Empire on my play, right up the top of the play. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But off the Arkansas Derby, I liked him in the Risen Star. I liked him in the Arkansas Derby. I thought the Arkansas Derby was very visually impressive. The number was a 94. It was a lifetime best for him, but maybe looking at this field, maybe a little bit light, but I think he's on the move forward. And I wonder if maybe he was better than that number. And the buyers are a tool in the toolbox. And so for me, Angel of Empire is on top, coming off of those nice 2 efforts, most recently down at the Fairgrounds and Oaklawn. And Forte, yes, he was very impressive visually in the Florida Derby. I have him right underneath in my mix, the Pletcher-Rapoli runner. And I think he does normally wash out like that. And I bring that up because today, when I was doing the afternoon handicapping show, he was out schooling. As we record this on Wednesday, he was schooling in the paddock and was a little bit obstreperous there as Todd Pletcher. And to the point where they took the saddle off and redid the whole thing again to kind of school him a little more, I thought. But I think that's his normal kind of state of mind, is to be a little obstreperous before. So, and he got over it, obviously, in the Florida Derby. So I have Forte in the mix as well. And I'll also note, I mentioned Practical Move, who I like and is in my mix, Forte in my mix, and Angel of Empire. And I went and looked up, speaking of historical trends, I looked at the last 10 Derby winners, taking out the 2020 Authentic, which was in September. But I looked at the winners, what was their prep race. In the last 10, again, taking out Authentic, 3 of the horses that won the Derby came out of the Florida Derby, 3 came out of the Santa Anita Derby, and 2 came out of the Arkansas Derby. That's 8 prep. That's 8 winners coming out of 3
At
prep
least tell
races.
the audience at least the race that Authentic came out of.
Well,
San Diego Derby, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I will.
Wood Memorial's been lagging the last 40 years.
I will also note there was the 2 DQs, but the horses that were DQ'd came out of the Florida Derby and the Santa Anita Derby. So they're very productive and practical move. Forte, Santa Anita Derby, Florida Derby, Angel of Empire out of the Arkansas Derby. So there are my thoughts.
What was that alternate word for sweating again? I got to write that down.
I said obstreperous.
Serves me right for speaking Latin before.
I feel as if Latin in my AP English class was on tonight's menu and I didn't get the email.
Or the hot dog.
Or the hot dog, or the Pepsi.
Anthony, you're up with 13, 14, 15.
Sun Thunder is a throw out for me. Now, I will say this. What's interesting about the 4 50-1 shots, I think there are, or at least 3 of them. You know, on an ordinary day, when you see 50-1 shot, they don't have this. They are not anywhere close to the morning line favorites as these guys are. These guys, they're not running negative zeros. Right. Just a big race. Sun Thunder is out for me. Angel of Empire is in my mix. What's interesting for me for the Brad Cox runner is this is the family that owned Not This Time, who got beat by Classic Empire for the juvenile championship a couple of years ago. And this is an offspring of Classic Empire, who I think many people thought more of would have gotten on the racetrack, and I think more of in the breeding shed. But I have Angel of Empire is, after my top 2 picks, is right there. Forte, I think, is a minor player in here. What I've started to feel about Forte is he's just like the kid in Little League who's, 8 months ahead of the curve with the rest of them. He was beating them up, and they're catching up. It's getting less good for him. But I do think it's Florida Derby, and even before they adjusted the time, that was an almost impossible race to win unless you're maybe the superior animal, which he was both. So I think he does deserve some just desserts from winning from, the parking lot at that race configuration on that racetrack. But I still only have him as a minor player, and for me, that means 3rd and 4th.
All right, I'll kick things off 16, 17, 18. We're looking at Raise Cane, Derma Sotogake, and Rocket Can. I can go quickly. Raise Cane and Rocket Can, neither of them are really attractive to me. Raise Cane coming out of the 6th in the Bluegrass, won the Gotham, but I'm not really giving a lot of credit for that. So I'm not using Raise Cane. Rocket Can, has some talent. It's Bill Mott and Frank Fletcher, and they have some very nice horses. I just don't think this horse on Saturday is going to be in the right place at the right time. That said, they bookend Derma Sotogake, who I debated and wanted to put in my mix, but you have to pare it down. I think coming out of that UAE Derby, he is very dangerous, very intriguing. But again, I just had to leave him out. I would not argue against anybody putting that one in, particularly given, the way the Japanese horses internationally have been performing over the past, year and a half or so. I'm going to be intrigued, A, to see how he does, but B, where he goes off at. We've been talking about the odds a lot. I'm really interested to see what kind of attention he attracts. Anthony?
I think you get the worst of it with him. I have really little to say from 16 to 23. I go through these. Raise Cane for Ben Colbrook, an outstanding young trainer. He's not good enough in this group, in my opinion. I think you're going to get all the worst of it at the windows with the 17 coming off the UAE Derby. Rocket Can is 30-1 in here and into Mischief for Bill Mott, which is probably the most dangerous part to that. And the fact that I like Angel of Empire, and I think this horse improved. I actually think this horse is going to move forward and run a career best. Whether or not that's close enough to get 3rd or 4th, I don't know.
I can basically say ditto to what you said. Raise Cane, I feel, has no shot. 0 for 3 going 2 turns. Like you alluded to with the Japanese horse, Derma Sotogake. I've been high on Japanese horses for a couple of years. I had that win over the big race, which was nice. I was hoping to get a little bit more that day. But like you said, he's going to take a little bit of pounding at the windows.
I think so.
Will be one of, at least the, if not the only wise guy horse in the race, one of the 2 wise guy horses in the race. And when I get the first Japanese Derby winner, I want to get really paid. I don't want to get a wise guy money paid, 8-1.
I agree. I think he's the horse you're going to get the most, all the worst of it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's kind of horse I want to see down the road as well. Just feel it might be a cut below. Usually those time form numbers, I guess you could bring them down, what, about 15% or something into buyers?
I know he won going, but you're talking Posse,
right?
Mind Your Biscuits on the other side. I mean, I don't know. I think the going's going to be tough.
And I don't feel Rocket Can has any shot whatsoever, despite the blinker edition.
All right, and let's go right through the last 5, which will include the AEs, because after last year, we can't leave off the AEs. I have heard too many handicappers
Apparently
say,
neither can T-shirt makers.
And didn't mention that. So we'll go through 19 through 23 here. Anthony, why don't you kick us off?
Well, Lord Miles, hopefully you got the money in the Wood Memorial because, fine. But there was a Wood Memorial a couple years ago, was like an all-time awful one and big money player, and it didn't come out. No one came out of that. I'm always suspicious when you get beat by big prices. I don't think that's a good thing. I think it's good for those who cashed on Lord Miles, but I think it's an indictment. I've said this about White Barrio. I mean, somebody has to win these races, but I think when you look back on them in 8-10 months, you're like, eesh.
Unless you're confident that the horse that beat him was a complete aberration with no shot whatsoever, and you're scratching your head and you say, well, maybe let's call that a one-off. Maybe those horses that were just, it was a blanket finish too.
And I think that's another indictment of it's that's it for me. Who else do we have here? Well, Lord Miles is a complete toss for me. How do you find it? Continuar. I think you're getting the worst of it with the winner of the UAE Derby. So this horse has no chance for me. Cyclone. The AEs, I know Seth is heartbroken that the 22 doesn't get in. I'm also surprised how the 22 isn't the 21 to at least give him a slightly better chance to draw in.
Where are we? Lord Miles. Well, I'd love to know where that effort came from.
Right.
Lord, where did it come from? The horse went from losing by a dozen to losing by
Baby
6.
Yoda, you gonna ever see it again? Good luck.
I was quite aggravated that day, especially with the run into the first turn, which ruined poor General Banker's chances of making the Derby. Continue on. The only thing I know about the workouts that they've been showing is this horse is not showing a heck of a lot anymore. It looked a little uninspiring.
Officer Dre Fong, right? Champion sprinter, right? A couple years ago. Right. 3-year-old.
Yeah. Cyclone Mischief doesn't do it for me. Mandarin Hero, once again, if you want to say
Seth wants to be able to bet him.
This is a kick myself horse. If you're going to use practical
moves. You don't see Seth for 2 days. He's down in Louisville fixing to get his horse in.
If you like practical move, you have to like Mandarin Hero.
And he does.
Needs 2 to get the sniffles in order to get in, as I would say. And King Russell, like you said, ran big, a decent second, but a 60-1 a race that really
was his day.
That was his days, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 19 and 20. I could go further, but why? I mean, the crazy win in the Wood Memorial is uninspiring to me, and continue our being badly beaten by Derma Sotogaki. Not thrilled. Of the AEs, Mandarin Hero is the one I find very, very intriguing. Could make a little case if Cyclone Mischief got in. I wouldn't argue anybody off of using that one, maybe underneath a little bit. King Russell doesn't thrill me, however. So, yeah, for me, of that last bunch, Mandarin Hero's the one that's a little bit interesting. The others, not so much.
Do the AEs have to declare by tomorrow?
Tomorrow, no. I think it's Friday, about 2:45, some midday Friday. Because we were talking off the air about when Coach Scratch that allowed Rich Strike to get in. The things I think I remember reading were they were within the final hour of Wayne deciding to scratch out. Well, he could have scratched, but no one could come in.
But there is advanced wagering. It's the only thing.
Is on Friday?
I think advanced wagering.
Then it's Thursday. Then they're gonna have to wrap it up and get the T-shirts off the presses, and
right.
So it has to be Thursday, and I'm guessing right around 3:00. Then they'll have to make the final. Well, I think how it works is the also eligibles will be scratched. Obviously, anybody else can scratch after that, but the AEs will be automatically scratched, and that's, then they'll open up the windows for horses who can. But for me, it's, the numbers are anything higher than 15, I'm out. I'll just let you know that right now. 15 is as far out on the saddle clock as I'm going. 16 through whatever number gets in are all tosses. Yeah, and he's a lower. He's a.
And I'm 11 on out, so.
Oh, everybody's 11 and in for you? Oh, 11 and out? You're inside first 10?
Yeah.
Are all your players?
No, not with all. Well, yes, with all my players.
Okay.
But definitely for my top choice. I didn't like anybody from the 11 on out.
All right, I'll kick us off and go through my selections specifically. I'm 5 deep here. Anthony mentioned it earlier. I'm an exacta guy. Normally you wouldn't go 5 deep on an exacta, but in here, I'll look up at the odds, and if they warrant it, I will play around and maybe toss some other combinations in as well, because it's that kind of race. But I have it 14, 15, 11, and 10, and then I have pulled Tapit Trice in at the bottom of the mix. So on top, I'm going to use Angel of Empire, as I said, coming out of the Arkansas Derby, and the Risen Star. I thought that Arkansas Derby win was very impressive. Might have to step it up a notch, but I don't think that's out of the question. Forte, done very little wrong so far, so I'm going to put him in the mix as well. Disarm is the one I'm crossing my fingers with. That morning line holds up, or somewhere, at 18, 20 to 1 or above is fine to juice up an exacta nicely, particularly in a 20-horse field. But he comes in, I think, in fine fashion, given what the buzz has been on the workouts. Practical move with the 2 triple-digit buyers is interesting, and Tapit Trice just comes in also in very good form for Todd Pletcher. And as I said, there are probably another 5 or 6 I could have maybe equal confidence in. And again, I may play around. I will note that I am live with the all others tickets. I looked this morning. I'm live to 13 horses in here in the future bets. And so Skinner, I think, was one of my future bets.
What'd you get on him?
I'm trying to think now, because I'm not sure. I had the page marked and I didn't have it separated out whether they were individuals.
Might get more on Saturday.
Part of
that's my thing about the.
If it's all
future.
others, there was a couple others that are kind of fun. I'm trying to think of. Oh, I had the Angel of Empire at 38 to 1. That one I remember. So that one's a little bit interesting. So again, there are some horses that aren't in my mix, but I'm still going to be at least a little bit alive to them on Saturday. And so next year, you may want to think about. Nobody I have taken the big dive at big prices, but enough that I'll make a little bit of money if some of these others manage to win. So it gives me a little bit of an opportunity to pare it down.
I don't bet them, but I've said that my rule of thumb would be 5 times the price, and Angel of Empire is going to be right there. He's probably going to be about 7 to 1-ish, and you got better than it's 5 times the price just to get in the gate. And Seth is going to, I think, be right there with him. To me, it's I play the Derby the same way all the time. It's and that's not lunacy because the results have worked out, but it's going to be it's the most unique bet I make all year because there's nothing like it. It's basically going to be, Disarm is my pick, but my wagering is going to be Skinner, the 9 and 11 over the 2, 3, 4. And even on this show, to show that I've matured a little bit, I can't throw Tapit Trice that far out. But mine is basically a 2 by 5 by somewhere near 10. And what I also do, though, is reverse my second place horses with my top picks because it works out financially. But for me, it's going to be the 9, 11 over the 2, 3, 4, 5, 14. And I'll select about 10 different horses between 1 and 15. And it won't be the 7. The 1, 7, 12, 13 are out. So it'll probably be all the rest under it. So that's like a 2 by 4 by 11-ish ballpark. That's $88. Then I'll flip-flop my second place horses on top. I will not play a box. One of my rule of thumb is one of my top 2 picks, Skinner and Disarm, have to run first or second. It's just the way it is. It's worked out for 40 years, so I'm not changing, but that's the way it'll be.
But we seem to be landing on some similar horses, if not all of them in our top 3. I think there's a common thread between Angel of Empire.
Yeah, there's definitely a common thread. I seem to be the naysayer on Practical Move. 2 of us I know at least are on Skinner, right?
Angel of Empire, you like him in the unders?
He's the truth is I have 7 major players. I have 7 players. 2 of them are the major players. That's Skinner and Disarm. The other 5 will be the second place horses, of which except for Practical Move, we're probably on the same board, and maybe nobody likes Disarm. I think you like this. Do you not like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you might not like Disarm, but what are your?
What do I know?
You're here, so so tell them what you think you know.
But first of all, before I get to my top 3, you know what bet that they had in Vegas? I wish they would do for us head-to-head wagering. I loved that so
You're
much.
talking to. You're preaching to the choir.
Make head-to-head wagering come back. I just love.
What
that
I would have
bet.
taken Monarchos versus Point Given, I couldn't have laid enough.
But anyway, I went with the 9, 10, 5. I'm digging Skinner. I would sign up for 20-1 tonight. I would sign up for 21 tonight.
I would too.
I would sign up for 20-1. I think some of the heavy bettors are the rare players.
This is one of the things I'd interrupt. We have a close associate, Steve. This is one time on a horse like Skinner, I'd like to be having been at Churchill Downs and at Louisville to get a feel for the chatter.
I think the chatter was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I think my fear is that he's the wise guy horse.
And it's the only horse that I remember not named after, but the jockey had the same last name. Kenny Skinner.
I used that 40 minutes ago.
Did you?
Absolutely.
Here?
Yes.
Where was I?
Go to the tape. Come on. Go back to the tape. When you see it on YouTube next week, you'll hear Kenny. You'll hear Kenny. Of course. Who would miss that?
I was just thinking about that delicious meal I had. Anyway, so I'm all in on Skinner.
I didn't have that thought.
I'm all in on Skinner. I would sign up for 21 right now. I like Practical Move just because it was right there with Skinner, obviously, for second. I see no reason to leave Tapper Trice out. I think 5-1 is short on the top end. And for the superfecta wagers, Angel of Empire, you gentlemen, resold me on the horse. I had the horse on the
That's
fringes.
okay. I got to take the rubber band off. You two have resold
and also
Practical Move. I can't cut off.
Throw 2 fills in the mix. That horse is going to get
He's
over.
in my mix.
And that was you?
He's the second tier.
Oh, the second tier. But
no, I can only.
The key is also a jockey like Loveberry.
Can I get a loan from you? It's the only way I can get 5 horses on top.
A jockey like Loveberry is going to be riding all out just to get third or fourth because that's a nice payday for him. So throw him underneath as well.
I hope he doesn't remember it's the Kentucky Derby. It's a horse race. You're a professional. Has he ever had a mount before? I mean,
I don't think so.
Remember this is a long time ago when Edwin Maldonado had the mount on I'll Have Another.
Right.
And we were doing the old style seminars. And I said, and people's like, what do you think this kid's going to do? I said, he's lucky because he doesn't have to think because he was a closer. It's like, you guys just all go. I don't have to push any buttons or anything. I'm just get out there, settle, relax, don't get knocked sideways, and then think from about the half-mile pole home. And it worked out.
It's like Sonny Leon.
Like what?
Sonny Leon
yeah,
last year.
The race will come to you.
Somebody, a podcast or something this week said, this such and such, I forget what horse is going to come from behind, but he won't get a trip like Rich Strike. And I wanted to say, nobody will ever get a trip like that. When you look at that blimp trip, it's just like this opened up. He made the correct
move. But you know what? That's true because, but I think it's one of those things where it's a resultant because that day we had pace, which makes for separation. Right. And that's going to be the opposite.
But he was also making all the right turns.
Well, that was
which was a
Shoemaker on Ferdinand. He gets through the spot.
It was a video game.
Gets stopped.
It was a video game ride. It was a final furlong. Video game ride.
Yep. And it opened up and he had space. But I wish there would be strong pace in this race. I'd like Skinner even more to move up.
I will toss out one more thing. Speaking of history, we're all probably old enough to kind of remember when dosage was something. And
that's right.
There was the day where I really bought into that. The last few years, not so much. But I will note for folks who maybe are interested in dosage, you want a number below 4, they say, only 2 horses above. Rocket Can 4.33, Angel of Empire with a 9. But Mandaloon a couple of years ago won with an 11, Nyquist won with a 7.
Now
so
here's
the dosage just kind of.
Here's the thing, though, that it's that old Sally Field line in Absence of Alice. It's true, but it's not accurate. In that the problem for the dosage, and I think Steve Roman's work was great. Here was the problem. Who the heck talks about Chef Dura stallions anymore? Who can even name the 5 classifications? Well, 2 of the classifications, professional and solid, they don't exist. Classic hardly exists now. All you have is brilliant and intermediate in the gene pool. So for those guys, they have no shot. They have no stallions
Yeah.
around. I'll give you the best example. When Strike the Gold won, Alyadar hadn't been classified yet, so he didn't fix. Who
Yeah, I
didn't think
remember that.
Alyadar was going to be a classic stallion?
Yeah.
And Steve Roman did a column and said, yes, when the time comes, he's clearly going to be placed here. They recalibrated it, and they did it. And that clock's never coming back. So no one is ever going to fit.
No, like I
you
said,
know,
there was a
all
day
the
where I
stallions
kind
are
of
gone.
bought into that. And it
Yeah,
seemed
well,
like-
it was 14 for 15.
Yeah.
It's kind of good.
And how long did it do with the experimental free?
Well, here's the other thing. 2-year-old racing has dramatically changed. So when those 3 racing secretaries got together, the horses had 7, 8, 9 races. They competed against each other. So putting a horse at 127, 126, they worked out. And nowadays, I've talked about this before. I have this sheet. Look at the 1970s Derby winners and how many of them were 2-year-old champions. It's like 6.
Right.
How's that working out the last 40 years? It doesn't work out. The game completely changed.
All right. Before we wrap up, we have a few more minutes here, so everybody will give maybe a couple of clever ideas
Yes.
On the undercard.
There's
Kevin,
more
why don't you
races.
kick things off. Distaff Turf Mile and the Churchill Downs races 5 and 10. You have some thoughts in?
Yeah, the Distaff Turf Mile is just an 8 horse field with the heavy favorite there, the Grand Motion horse, Spenderella. But I'm looking at the number 8, Freedom Speaks, at 20-1, I believe. 20-1.
Yeah.
Price play posted an adjusted 98.9 and the lone second start off a layoff attempt, which is happening today, and likely needed that race after more than a half a year layoff. The barn is 3 for 8 with turf routers, 39 days or less at lower than 50-1. And there's a subcategory of 2 for 3 with those that finished off the board last time out. Going long on firm ground, supposedly, for the first time. So I'm going to take a shot there. Freedom Speaks at 20-1.
That's in the 5th, the Distaff Turf Mile.
The 5th, 8-4-5, that race. And then the 10th will be the
Churchill Downs race, because I have an opinion there too.
the Churchill Downs race. Actually, no. It's not the 10th. You do your 10th race, and I'll come back to mine.
My 2 thoughts is at about high noon, we're going to be the 4th leg of the first pick 5. So Goodbye Olive makes her second start of the year. She won the Madison at Keeneland. I'm looking for a regression. I'm looking for an upset here. And Hot and Sultry, who draws the rail. This is the old Humana Distaff for folks, the grade 1 going 7/8. So I'm looking for an upset, expecting Goodnight Olive, who's been handled magnificently by Chad Brown to a championship. She came back on point. I'm expecting a little regression in the second start of the year. So I like Hot and Sultry in the Derby City Distaff, the grade 1 going 7/8. And in the aforementioned 10th race, which is the grade 1 7 furlongs for the boys, the Churchill Downs, we're going to have a 4-5 Cody's Wish, who's making the first start since the Dirt Mile. I like Hoist the Gold, who is going to be any price for Dallas Stewart, 30-1 on the morning line. Keying Independence Day Eve race against Gunite, finishing 3rd on this surface. Going to definitely get lost. I am against the 2 Breeders' Cup winners on Saturday. Cody's Wish, I do think, is more vulnerable than Goodnight Olive, but Hoist the Gold, looking through Dallas Stewart, I think is going to be a major player in there at a big price. That's probably the 3rd. That's we have the 10th race starting at pick 5. Good luck, folks. What's your other race?
The mistake I made was the 7th race I like. I figured being I'm giving out 2 20-1s and a 30-1. Let me throw 1 4-1 in there. That way, if at least, if the horse wins at 3-1, I could say, hey, I broke even on my selections on the show yesterday. Arrest me red.
Yeah,
the
but
10
the
horse.
20-1 does it. You can say it for 5 years.
Yes, I can. Arrest me red. 4-1 morning line. Probably going to go off a little bit lower. Wesley Ward, Irad. Ward is 2 for 3 in second. Oh, the horse is 2 for 3, second off the shelf, with one of those wins coming in his only start here, and both of the wins came with Irad and the irons. Formulator.
That's good, right?
That's very good. Formulator has Ward at 5 for 8 with graded turf sprinters who hit the board less than 55 days ago at 7-1 or less. All of them ridden by Irad, and there's a $3.83 ROI in that regards. And Irad had, I think, at least a couple of winners. One thing he does do, man, on these big days,
Wins in bushels.
he wins in bushel fulls
Yes.
on big, and now in the days leading up to, he's He is a
dialed
big
in.
time rider.
One thing I'll say, just as purely getting run over by all the races, I'm interested in Speak of the Devil for Chad Brown coming back in the Distaff Mile. She won it in her American debut last year, crushing in Italian, and hasn't won since. I'm intrigued how she comes back at Churchill Downs going a mile.
I'll take a look at the 8th, the Pat Day Mile, 3-year-olds. And, these big days now with the big 3-year-old races, there's usually kind of a second-tier 3-year-old race. And,
does this classify in your subset of sprinters going a mile?
Yeah, I would think it would.
I
Sure.
think so.
The one-turn mile, 9, 5, 12, and 7 for me. I'm going to put General Jim on top, who I think has the potential to be a really nice 3-year-old, whatever they elect to do for Shug. Hasn't been seen since the win in the Swale. You'd have to think they've been pointing to this for a little bit. Comes down after working at Belmont. I think General Jim is interesting. Echo again, a gun runner, 3-year-old from Winchell, and Asmussen. Asmussen also has a gun runner, gun pilot in here, and Fort Bragg a little bit interesting as well. So 9, 5, 12, and 7. And in the Turf Classic, race number 11. And don't forget, there's an Oaks Turf Classic Derby pick 3.
Oh, caramba.
What's the gap between the Turf Classic and is it still 90 minutes?
Friday and Saturday. Probably. Yeah, I would assume 5:27 and 5:27 and 6:27. So there you go.
Mama Lucian.
6:57. 5:27.
Oh yeah, there's
6:50.
So 90 minutes.
Yeah. But the Turf Classic 9, 3, 5, and 10. I'm going to use Spooky Channel on top. Comes out of a nice race, winning the Munoz down at the fairgrounds. Joe Rosario on board that day, back on board again. So in the Turf Classic, 9, 3, 5, and 10.
And circling back to my thought, Echo again, 94 buyer speed figure on debut at Saratoga.
Right. And I will say,
hasn't seemed to.
Any race named after Pat Day should be 7 furlongs. Because when I think of him at Churchill Downs, I think
7/8.
Yes. Not a mile. It should be 7/8.
I think a mile is 16th. Just sitting
the
there.
Pat Day Mile at Churchill Downs. That is sure.
Absolutely appropriate. That's the old Derby trial, I trust, right? Is that the old Derby trial? They kicked it aside.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, it's been fun, and it's going to be a fun weekend. Any final thoughts?
I hope for great weather. I saw you today on the. This is being taped on Wednesday. I saw you on Wednesday. It looked like a Chamber of Commerce day. I just hope we get that all the way through.
Well, I hope they all come back sound.
Yeah.
Most important thing.
Yeah,
it's a great day it's a great weekend for racing, and it's an incredible job they've done. They've done a great job at Churchill Downs over the last 30 years, turning Friday in, getting these turfs. You guys are too young, but I remember when they didn't have a turf course. When Ali Sheba won the Kentucky Derby, there's no turf course.
Well, I hope to get down there one year when it's actually fans. I was down there with Tisdalore and Jack Knowlton doing a little work for them when the horse ran. And it was nice doing the walkover, but it would have been nice to have heard a little noise.
I will say this. It is crazy. The prices are crazy, but you should do it once. I went Sunday Silence, easy goer. It was a god-awful day, snow in the morning.
Snow?
But snow. If you go on YouTube and you look at the ABC coverage, the first thing they show is it's snowing left to right over the Twin Spires. That's my good luck.
All right, we'll wrap it up. Again, Anthony Mormino, Kevin Cox, the Brooklyn Cowboy. I'm Seth Merrow. Hopefully we tossed out some good ideas. Have a lot of fun on the weekend, Friday and Saturday, all kinds of wagering opportunities. And as we kind of alluded to and went over, some really nice stakes action on the undercards as well. But Oaks and Derby providing a lot of firepower also that will play into later in the year as well as we kick off the Triple Crown. And certainly we'll see some of these 3-year-olds up, Alabama and Travers. Looking forward to that as well. So enjoy the couple of days, cash some tickets. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.